You're right. I missed the beer, so there we go. Merry Christmas. As that one pours all over the floor. Probably sums up how things have gone so far this year. But anyway, here we are. Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas, indeed. I've jumped into the festive spirit, and hopefully today I will give you some sort of festive overview of how the markets are going, where we currently are, and I will try as best as I can to find positivity. I promise you, I will try. That's about as best. I have actually just gone and spilt this all under my foot, so I'm just going to put this blanket down, mop it up in good old, you know, bloke fashion, not really worry about it too much, and then we'll pick it up later. Right. So, what are we going to have a look at today? I'm not really interested in chatting too much about the news. It's 2 days before Christmas. Let's just have a bit of a conversation about Bitcoin, cryptos, all of the things that brings us towards where we currently find ourselves, where there is a bit of Christmas hope somewhere in the market. But I'm not going to lie to you. We're also going to have a little bit of a look at perhaps what might be holding us back ever so slightly. So just before we do, obviously there's going to be no trading pub on Thursday. And I'm not going to lie to you, I'm not really going to be in a state to do anything on Friday, but I will be around next week. And next week, I normally do like a little bit of a review of the year. I think the question's really going to be, has 2025 been a failure for Bitcoin? And we'll have a look into that. So I might touch on a few things today about that, but that'll be mainly next week's one. Without any further ado, let's just jump in. Oh, my Stream Deck's not working. Just bear with me a second. Okay, there we go. So, usual chart for us all now, 3-day time frame, Bitcoin, white horizontal lines. I draw this on every week, the yellow descending lines. I've just left it on at the moment. But as you can kind of see, and I did get quite excited yesterday, I'll be honest, because we broke through that line, but I tempered it, unfortunately, with let's just see how it closes. And on the 3-day time frame, with only 4 hours to go, we're still underneath that resistance line. It's a very clean touch to it. I'm not going to say rejection just yet, but we are sort of in that descending pattern. And the theme really today, it's very similar to last week, is whilst we're still within this range, there's not, for me, there's nothing really to get too worried about. Nothing to get more worried about, and there's nothing really to get too excited about. So, if you are someone that didn't sell when we broke 94,000 and we went down, I'm not exactly suggesting right now that you need to panic sell your bags in this current position. And likewise, if you did happen to get out, but you haven't quite bought back in when we dropped below 84,000, again, just sort of wait and see how things have come in. We have been playing this range now for pretty much for a month. And whilst we're in there, there is some opportunities for any of the more adventurous traders out there to just try and play this range pattern. It's not really working with some alts, so be careful with that. But certainly from Bitcoin's point of view, there is some opportunity to play the range. But just bear in mind that at any stage it could break down, particularly now that we have ended up running up into this line. We have a look at Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm going to go into more detail with Bitcoin a little bit later on. Don't worry about that. We have a look at Bitcoin dominance. It's kind of slowly moving up, but as I said last week, unless we're sort of breaching, let me find it again, 60, or we're losing 58, I'm not really getting too excited. We're in this no man's land. We're not getting a really clear direction, on what's leading the market. I think we're kind of just sort of treading water there. For me, Bitcoin is still in charge, and that's probably the main point that we take from this. We need to lose 58 and below for alt season to really take into effect. But, talk of alt season right now does feel a bit tongue-in-cheek there. And the reason behind that, when you look at total 2, we are at the lows that we were, way back in sort of April, May, I suppose March kind of time. We're using it as support. It's similar in many respects to Bitcoin in terms of, we're still within this range here. But we've got a long way to go, for alt season. this has to go up whilst Bitcoin, doesn't perform as well. I'm not going to say it won't go up. So right now, that's not really where the balance is. And when we go into the portfolio a little bit later on, that's kind of reflected on how I am. And then when we do look at BitTensor, I've got to be honest with you, I look at it, this chart looks terrible. I mean, actually terrible at the moment. We're down at what, 214 right now, just sustained falling. If you were to consider this to be, let me just clear this up. Let me just clear all of this off because there's so much on this to kind of talk about. But, if you were to consider sort of some sort of fall here, a ranging pattern, and then a potential further fall down, we could easily get into the high 100s or 160, 180 kind of region. And that's just going off the bear flag mentality. But this move down doesn't really seem to have found a bottom yet. And yeah, a pretty difficult position to be in, especially when you think that not 7 weeks ago we were, peaking at sort of 530 level. We're now down what, $315 down from that level over 7 weeks. Not a great place to be, and that's just the reality of it. I hate to say it from where we find ourselves. And I suppose we sort of delve into the 12-hour time frame, bit of liquidation, but with this range, we haven't really seen too much happen. And you'd be forgiven for saying it's a bit of deja vu, because this time last week, we were pretty much at the levels we find ourselves now. Tuesday we closed at 87,700, just about thereabouts, but 87,500. So yes, in that last week, we've gone down to 84,000 and back up to almost 91, but we kind of find ourselves here. And even from the areas of interest in terms of liquidation hotspots, we didn't really delve into this area down below, sort of basing out about 82, but starting at 84.5 kind of level. We didn't quite get into that. And this one at 94,500, although it's only a smidge left, we haven't touched that. Now, I couldn't even be bothered to put the price box on this one. It's so short-lived, but there is something in and around 91,000 right now. But I think that's just, it's just come about from the last sort of 2 or 3 days when price got up there, back up sort of 90.5. So yeah, not too much. And in terms of, fib levels, where do we find ourselves? Okay, we're sort of bashing in and around that 1.414 level. But again, I'm not really too worried about that fib level because we've kind of ranged in and around between it. And unless we're getting, just off the fibs of sort of 97,000, or we actually finally do lose 83,000, again, it's just confirming that sadly we're moving sideways. And yes, we're going to talk about things like Santa rallies. We're going to talk about sort of end of year cycle movements upwards, etc. in a moment. But right now, that isn't what Bitcoin's doing. It is just ranging that way. And I do want to stress, although there's going to be some pretty disgusting looking charts in a future, in a moment, for me, I just want to reiterate, there's nothing, a knee-jerk reaction that really needs to happen right now. If you find yourself still in the market, I'll just reiterate it. I wouldn't suggest sort of bailing out at these levels. And if you are out of the market and you're wondering, should I actually now get back in? There's an argument to be saying perhaps not, although we are on the lower side of the current range. So, maybe you might find just a small move up from that. But again, I am not exiting the market. I'm not waving the fully in the bear market kind of camp right now, although, as I've been saying for probably months actually, I am cautious because we have lost key levels and we need price to prove to us that we are somewhere better than we currently find ourselves. And I will unfortunately stand by that. And I do get a bit of heat in Discord and in the DMs from it, but I can only say what I see, sadly. And sentiment, we're still in extreme fear. We've been in extreme fear. It's not just a month. We've been down here for pretty much 2 months now. I don't think we've breached above 30 on the extreme fear since the 3rd of November. Yeah, that's probably about right, I think. So, so we've been down here a long time. And this feels particularly difficult because, ignoring that we're now being told that we're in a super cycle, and I am going to address that next week at length. And it's actually 2026, which is going to be our year. Don't worry about it. Because the same people who told us it was 2025 are now just telling us it's 2026. So it's okay to believe them for that one. But the reality of it is we've had 3 years up. Okay, we've had 3 years solidly up. Blow off top, we were expecting sometime in Q4 of 2025. We were all going to get out because we were prepared for it. And we were then going to, sell at the right time and just sit on our backs for 12 months whilst we wait for the market to settle. But it hasn't. And what we've kind of found ourselves in a really weird kind of place, in the sense of, actually, Bitcoin has gone stagnant and fallen hard, then got stagnant. Altcoins just haven't really got along themselves. And we are in this very prolonged extreme fear kind of period. I have just seen your comment about the Santa Rally, and we are going to address which days of the month it does come into. Don't worry, I'm going to get onto that. Actually, whilst I got your attention, because I see the comment above, SSSL, just let me know what the abbreviation. I would call it a TLA, 3-letter abbreviation, but really it's an FLA, 4-letter, and then I might be able to just try and understand that one for you. But so sentiment is down. We're all feeling down. Nobody wants to talk about it, and everyone's embarrassed to bring it up on Christmas Day, because, we told everyone about it at 126,000, and now we're dreading them actually grilling us on it when we have to say it's at 87,000. We never actually sold anything. So yeah, we do. Sentiment is going to be there, and I will stand by. Buying in extreme fear is never a bad thing, particularly if you're thinking from a long-term mindset. In terms of the other canary in the coal mine, once we get rid of my running addiction, is BlackRock. And there's a lot of black on BlackRock's column at the moment. Actually, there's more black than there is red, but it's not exactly huge amounts. I mean, they must have just raided the sofa yesterday after all the kitty, what was left over from the Christmas party, and found $6 million worth. It's got to be one of the smallest buys they've done. Appreciate there's obviously days where they don't buy anything, but 6 million seems fairly low. And even some of the other ones, we're only got 2 out of the last 15 days that have broken 100 million. That is, it's pretty light for BlackRock. The rest, it's looking like a bit of a bloodbath, but we've never really given them the level of credibility or credit that we do, or certainly I do, for BlackRock. So, excuse me, I'll have another sip of beer. I'm again, it's not really telling me too much, except for things are light. That's all. Okay, let's start having a look at the bad, and then we'll get on to the good. I think that's probably the best way to look at it. So, yeah, the picture has not changed, unfortunately. This is why I feel the way I feel. 50 EMA has been broken. It's been broken now for 6 weeks. We had another close only a couple of days ago. We haven't really done much, and I will stand by the fact that until Bitcoin gets above, the new level now is 98,000. Let's just call it that. Till it gets above that, I am not going to get excited. Okay, I'm afraid I will be monotone. I will be, questioning where I've really been. No, seriously, I'm just waiting for that kind of move. And I, to be fair, even if we are in a bear market, and I'll show you later, I still expect an impulse move to the upside. And I think our battleground will be in and around that 100K level. Previous support resistance, psychological level of getting back into 6 figures, and the 50 EMA. I think it's going to be a real battle there. And if we can prove ourselves above that, then I think maybe we can justify actually having some credibility talking about an extended super cycle and what 2026 may bring us. But until then, actually, it's very much looking like 2025 played out exactly as we thought it was. We just didn't optimize it as best as we could. Now, one thing you can do to try and give yourself a little bit of a copium, whatever you want to call it, so looking at the 50 EMA, we can throw on the 100 EMA. Now, the 100 EMA plays quite an interesting role in that when you look at past cycles, 100 EMA, when it breaks, it's when people actually do finally wave the white flag. So you'll be amazed. For those of you that were in 2017 cycle, through 2018, we were jumping up and down 6,000, up to 12,000, back down to 6,000, 10,000, back down to 6,000, 8,000, 6,000. 6,000 was the level. And it took a long time, but when we finally broke it, that's when everyone gave up. That was it. This was a capitulation event in November. Okay, that was my foray into leverage trading as well. So it was an interesting time. But if you actually look, we lost 100 EMA, weekly time frame. 100 EMA, finally broke it. Everybody gave up and conceded we had been experiencing a bear market. You kind of go to 2021 bull market. 2021 blow off top happens in November. We get this pullback here. Everyone say, don't worry about it, guys. It's just a pullback. We had a very similar occasion in May and June, and we're going to recover the 100Ks on the cars. Trust me, bro. And what did actually happen? We found support at the 100K, at the 100 weekly. We had an impulse rally up. It failed. It got just above the 50 EMA, long enough to tantalize us, and then we lost it, and out we went, and everyone accepted bear market. And to be fair, by then, we had Luna, we had 3 Hours Capital, and we were on the way to FTX. So there's plenty of actual real-term news that was driving the sentiment down. But again, 100 EMA was where we were. So I don't usually follow this, but I need a bit of hopium too. We have a look at where the 100 EMA is at the moment, and to be fair, we're held above it. So can't wave the white flag yet because we haven't lost this. Previous cycles, we need to lose it before people will actually give in. And hey, we don't know whether there's an impulse coming. I do believe, I hope that there is one there, but it's what we do with this, and then when we come back down, can we hold that 50 EMA, that 100 EMA, apologies. And I think that's something that if you need to just sort of give yourself a, right, what am I actually doing? Am I taking this seriously now? And having a look at certain things. Have this on your chart and say, right, well, we lose that level. We lose, I don't know, it's going to be about 85,000 weekly time frames. We close below that. We need to start suggesting, right, how much further now can we actually go? If you aren't out, maybe it's the time to start thinking about taking something off the table, considering I'm going to play the longer game now and look to get back in at a lower level. And if you are already out, you can start thinking, right, actually, you know what, bear market's a good time for me. I've already got out. Now it's about repositioning to get back in for the next one. But have this one on your charts. But as I say, we've not lost it yet, so there's still plenty to go for there. I am going to talk about this much more next week, so just bear with me. But I started to think about super cycles and the ISM and Raoul Pol talking about, it's a liquidity cycle, business cycle. We're just waiting for it. All the pieces are on the board now. Rates are coming down. QT stop. QE's around the corner. We're actually getting stealth QE as it speaks, etc., etc. The pieces are moving into place, and we're going to see a great 2026. And I actually don't necessarily disagree with that, but I've always kind of advocated that I think there's a period in between end of 2025 and whenever 2026 takes off again that people just kind of overlook. And all I've drawn out here, for those of you that do follow the 4-year cycle, for any of you fans of Bob Lucas or the like, this is the 4-year cycle. This is how it's gone. It's actually 47 months, but close enough to 48 months to call it the 4-year cycle. And we go back to sort of, so this, I've kind of marked them on the charts here. So you get 35 bars, 3 years up, 12 bars, this monthly time frame, 1 year down, 3 years up, 1 year down, 3 years up, 1 year down. So from 2014, where we had the bear market from, you can't see some heads in the way, but 2014 bull market went all the way back down. And so 2015, January 2015, we start moving back up. We do those 35 bars that I talk about, and we find a top in December of 2017. And then we go back down for 12 bars, and we find the bottom in November. Pretty sure it was November, it might be December of 2018. Okay, so people have already said, well, wait a second, this happened twice now. 4-year cycle does seem to be working quite well. We roll on into 2020 and 2021 cycle. 3 years up from the bottom, we get to 2021. November, the beginning of November hits of 2021, peak of the market, we drop back down for 12 months. We find a bottom again in November. We climb out of that bottom and off we go. And then funnily enough, no one wants to believe it, but we've had 35 bars again, takes us to October. Guess what happened in October? We hit 126,000. And then we started to fall away. And we may well be 3 months into that 12 bars down. No one wants to believe it right now because similar story to what we were being told in 2021, 100K is just around the corner. Well, here, the new all-time high is just around the corner. And again, we'll cover that in a bit more detail. But just looking at it from this, there's definitely method to the madness there. I mean, you can't help but just see that actually everything we talked about for the last 3 years about finding a all-time high in Q4 of 2025, and I'm being a bit cute there because I was sort of saying plus or minus 30 days from the 1st of December, which really should have been 1st of November, but you can forgive us maybe for sort of just rounding that into Q4. At the moment, that's exactly what's happened. And people say it's not a blow off top. I disagree. You hit 26,000 and then drop immediately to 80,000. That feels pretty blow off to me. You lose 50% of your value in a matter of what, 40 days? I think that feels pretty blow offy, but we are still waiting for the white flag to be raised, for that 100 EMA weekly time frame to be broken. I think maybe then people will actually start to do it. So that's kind of where we find ourselves. And I reiterate again, we are sadly just at the bottom of that range, just above the 100 weekly EMA. We don't sell at resistance. We don't buy at support. We wait until we cross those thresholds, then we make the decision. So right now, the only thing we can really do is sit on our hands and actually wait for that decision to be made for us. And it is a patient game. We've been patient for 3 years. We might as well be patient for another 2 months if that's what it's going to take. But yeah, we'll go through this one a little bit more detail next week. But the similarities, unfortunately, don't stop there. Now, for those of you that were around in 2021, particularly with us, we used the RSI a lot more back then. We've kind of ignored it this time, and maybe that is poor form on my behalf, but we didn't want to believe what was forming in 2021. So we had, and again, weekly time frame here at the moment. I'll zoom in a little bit and we can take everything there. But we have the two tops, April and November. But what you can kind of see from the RSI down the bottom was actually on the way up to the peak in April. We peaked on the RSI, and then for the next pretty much 12 months, although price continued to climb, RSI was in decline, signaling a bearish divergence. Now, we don't get a time frame on bearish divergence, but we know something's going to happen. And on a weekly time frame, it's going to be kind of major. And so we kind of look at where we find ourselves right now. And I tell you what, if we look back in history and say we ignored this one at our peril, well, what have we done for pretty much the last 18 months here? So this is March, April 2024. We started this one here. We then go into the Trump rally in December of 24. And okay, it doesn't, this doesn't line up perfectly, but you kind of get that it is setting a new high. I can't draw an exact line, but each time we form a new high in price, we can see that the RSI peaks, but at a lower level. So we're still getting that bearish divergence from it. And now we got to ask ourselves, well, is it broken? Because actually, we either need to put in a low and then continue down, or we need to put in a failed high. And we're not too sure where that goes. But just to sort of come back to, do I think that we are due a relief rally or a new climb to an all-time high? Even if you just have a look at sort of similar kind of patterns here, and if I just draw your attention to what happens when we sort of peak, we have this move back down, and then just look what happens. I'll try and draw it out here. This is the area that I'm interested in. Okay, so we have this strong move down. We find a bottom on the RSI in and around about this 35 level weekly time frame. We can kind of see, you can't see because my head's in the way. Move it this way. It's fairly decent support and resistance level, that 35 on the weekly time frame. We come back down to it, and then we form a bounce from it. Okay, no guarantee on how high or how far or how long that bounce is going to go, but we see that we had that. We come back on this side. We had the blow off top. We have this strong move back down, as we can see with the RSI. Come back to the 35. Okay, we're just going, we're stagnant. We haven't broken through it. But if this is to follow similar, and when you look at things like where we are on the fear and greed index, when you look where we are on RSIs on most of the other levels, we are pretty close to oversold. And I've lost whichever one was my chart. This one here. I still stand by. I do expect, oh, no, that's not it. I expect some sort of relief rally here. Don't know how high it's going to go, but what I kind of expected to happen is that we see this comes closer to this line. Not guaranteeing it's going to get to it. It might do. Or it might just sort of get to that sort of 50, 55 kind of level where we've seen it before it comes back down. And then we have the real battle, oops, of whether or not we're getting, why won't this move? Don't know. There we go. Real battle down here on this yellow line, and whether or not we get below it. So, there's certainly indicators right now which are suggesting we need to pay attention. Okay, we need to pay attention. We have got below the 50 EMA. We are holding ever so slightly above the 100 EMA. we've got that support and resistance line I talked about from 126,000 to where we find ourselves at the moment. We've got the RSI showing us a bearish divergence, which we're waiting. This could be the start of it falling off, or we have that one next move up, and then we just see whether or not it continues with how high it can go. But I go back to the fact that if we do find that move up and we can't break the 50 EMA, we can't, even if we get higher, say we get to 106, 110,000, if we can't break into, well, what it'll be here, sort of 60 and before in the RSI, we're still continuing potential bearish divergence, particularly if we do actually put in a new all-time high from getting that. So we just got to, I think, be very cautious about how we are realistically assessing our current position within the market. And notice I've not talked about altcoins yet either. This is just from a Bitcoin point of view. Chat disconnected. Oh, okay. My chat disconnected and now it says successfully connected. Not sure what's going on there. Okay, let's have a look at some simple support and resistance before we get into a bit more of the technical stuff. So I've just put this on the linear. That's why I've written it there, just to remind myself, because I don't normally operate on the linear. But let's get rid of this one for now. We can kind of see, and I drew this before, actually, we're still in an uptrend, okay? We are still in an uptrend. That 3 years up, it's still technically still an uptrend. From a weekly point of view, candle closes or wicks, all we have done since 2023 is make higher highs and higher lows. And that has still happened. And then actually, until we break this yellow line, that's going to continue to happen. You could argue, actually, until we break 74,667, we could argue that we're still in the uptrend. So as for whatever I've just said for the last 15 minutes, again, we can't really knee-jerk reaction just yet because we're still in that uptrend. And it's that difficult period. And I kind of discussed this when we were above the 50 EMA. We could drop so fast through it that suddenly you lose a lot of what you wanted to take off the table waiting for that confirmation. And that's the kind of the game of dice that ultimately, or game of chess we're ultimately playing right now. But as we see here, we are in an uptrend still. That is our major level of support. This can be obviously tidied up however you want. Probably better on that one. Sort of takes in this wick for March, takes in obviously the all-time highs, takes in the March 24 high, takes in some of the tariff dump, and then it takes in what happened in November as well. So pretty, weekly time frame, pretty powerful trend line there. The only problem that you also have on the linear time frame is you can draw this one. And it does look better on the log, I'll be honest. But there's still some sort of pattern here, which kind of says, is this major support? So it only starts in October 23, but we come in and we hit this several times. I mean, I could probably try and draw it to the wicks. Like I say, log does it a bit better where we can like tie in price action from this area with this wick here. But have we lost that major support? And if we now get rid of this, and I will bring it back, if we get rid of that, are we actually below major support? We do need to get out. We just did a bit of a Kobo before we roll over once again. And unfortunately, that goes back to why we are in where we are in terms of lack of clear direction for those of us that haven't done anything yet. Now, you'd put both of these together, and nothing paints a better picture. Not only are we smack bang in the middle of it, but again, two major support and resistance lines. We haven't threatened either, unfortunately, in a month. 3 weeks for the upside, but yeah, 4 or 5 weeks for the downside. And so yeah, we just have to sadly wait. And here it is on the linear. I think there's still a very similar picture. I suppose the major support level can go all the way back to the beginning of the bull market in 2023. It doesn't come close to the tariff ones, forgive me, but we do have more touch points from down here. But again, we lost that level. And we're just riding in the middle of it. So from a very simplistic long-term support and resistance line, sadly, argue we could miss the boat, but also we don't need to jump off just yet. And then we have a look at where we find ourselves with sort of horizontal support here and some major levels. And this is the range that I'm kind of talking about. Okay, 74,200, 74,500 ties in with the peak from March of 24, but also the bottom of the tariff drop. So that's why that one's down there. We've got this 84,500, which is not only daily closes from the November drop. We can also see when we go back over, there's plenty of interaction March and April in the tariff kind of things. The 92,800, 93, however you want to look at that, rounding it up or down, not bothered. A lot of interaction with where we are now. But again, this sort of shoulder of activity when we climbed out of the tariff earlier this year. We got the 100K, we got the 106, 107,000 other key levels in and around there. But this is the ranging bit ultimately, isn't it? This is what people are either talking about being a bear flag, or we just happen to be ranging. There's an argument for some sort of bottoming pattern, you know, oops, with this here. But again, just we haven't had any confirmation. We're victims of having to be patient, which is frustrating when we've waited 3 years for our moments in the sun, and it hasn't quite manifested itself yet. As I said, you know, for those of you that are feeling adventurous and you've got something that you can sell, you can wait to the top of this range, wait till it's rejected and starting to move on the way back down. And for anyone that's then playing it, we've got this bit down here. And we said on Tuesday, was it Tuesday? It might have been 2 weeks ago, after we lost this. It was Friday the 12th. Okay, so it was a couple of Fridays ago, that it felt like the next move was down here just because we had lost that level. We've come back down and there's an opportunity to. Now, it's a Bitcoin candle, but I did some Tau purchases yesterday here, which Tau doesn't look very good anyway. It doesn't look like very similar at all in terms of the daily time frame. But I did buy back yesterday, and I've been sort of like trying to edge myself out of it a little bit, but I haven't sold a lot of it yet, which we'll cover in a little bit. But there is that opportunity to play that. But again, for me, you know, they're the levels we kind of need to work towards in terms of where we're dealing with. And for those of you that asked last week for the fib video, I did put one online for you all. So we just sort of have a look at that fib again. I can't remember how I drew the last one because we did it there's this one down at the base, which you can kind of see 92,800. Everything's running into it. But if we did wick to wick, which I don't usually do, you should know that now from the video. If we do wick to wick, we can kind of see there's definitely something back at that 236 in terms of support resistance. We didn't quite get to the 382. I don't know whether it's close enough to call it a victory, but there's certainly some interaction there. So anyway, that's kind of, unfortunately, the picture where we are, big picture. We're going to move into some of the smaller picture in a moment, but I do want to get into talking about the Santa rally, because people talk about the Santa rally all the time. And I think it's quite interesting. The Santa rally traditionally is, what's going on here? Why is it not loaded? I just wanted it for the headline, not really too worried about what it talks about, although we can cover some options things in a moment. But the Santa rally traditionally is for the traditional markets, and effectively the last week, 5 days, however you want to call it, within the market, we usually see some form of uptrend, whether that's due to light volume because half the investors are away, so you've got a lot, more ability to move it, whether because bankers are needing to get their year-end bonuses, so they're pushing things a little bit more to try and move the market up so they can fill their pockets. However you may think it is, that's sort of always been the case. And I a couple of weeks ago, I went through and sort of the probability of success, and it's like 70% of the time December produces like a 6% increase in price across the traditional markets, which is why people move on to it so well. And if you actually have a look at some of the traditional markets, yes, we've had a bit of a downturn, but over the last few days, Nasdaq nicely on its way up. Today's really the last kind of full day of trading, I think, until sometime next week. S&P pretty close to its all-time highs, but a similar kind of picture. Last sort of 4 days worth of trading, we have seen that this thing start to move back up. We have a look at the Russell, not as clear a picture, but there is some movement up there. Gold knows zero chill at the moment. There's multiple reasons why. New all-time high today. Let's go. And then silver, if gold didn't know a chill, I'm just kind of follow sort of base support here. Silver's pretty much gone vertical now. This one feels like it is in a hyper move on the way up. And yes, I did sell 50% of my silver at $25. So we all 27, I think I got it sold for. But at the time, I was like, wait a second, the market says 25. He's offering me 26, 27. And what's going on here? He obviously knew. So yeah, this thing has moved very well recently. How much time he's got left, I have to wait and see. But obviously, just old classic kind of major support. We're in that fourth angle right now. We start losing this, some big drops down there. But, even if we correct back down, and I've gone off subject here, but since it's on the chart, a fall to 57 might feel, catastrophic for anyone in silver. But the reality of it is still $57 and just to find some support again. So difficult one to do at the moment. How do you get in on it? Especially when it's gone that vertical. But going back to the Santa rally, that's where it is. So I thought, well, let's draw up Bitcoin's last 4 or 5 years, see how that has done. And kind of spoiler alert a little bit here, but I've broken Bitcoin's price down over the last 4 years. So 2024 into 25, 23 into 24, 22 into 23, 21 into 22. And what you can see is the entire month of December on each of those. And look, we just start on the left-hand side, 2021 into 2022. Well, the whole month of December was down. We did have a move up. However, immediately after Christmas, that was lost. And we came and corrected all the way back down. This is after the bull market, remember? The blow off top in 69,000. So whether or not I'm classing it as a Santa rally, I suppose there was. I put no just because the beginning of the month, the end of the month wasn't there. But, if we take, let's say, Monday the 20th, and you can get all the way to the 27th, there was a 15% uptick there, but we lost it all within 2 days. And that was still within the month of December. So I'm kind of saying no. We go and have a look at 22 into 2023. It did end up on the month. So, oh no, it didn't. Sorry, I've not pulled this across. This red candle here is the first. And then it ended. It's pretty flat, I suppose. Where is it? Here. So it was at 17 and it ended at 16.4. So only 500 difference. We had this move up, but as was mentioned in chat earlier, sorry, my OBS is over it now. Santa rallies are supposed to occur towards the end. We saw, and again, another strong move up. 10% move up, but again, immediately lost. And that was in the first half of December. So didn't really meet the criteria. We go into 2023 into 2024. So we're actually kickstarted. We're in the bull run now. And what do we see? We see a strong move up. We start the month at 37,000. We end the month at 44,000. Pretty good 20% increase over the month. But in terms of the Santa rally, actually over the Christmas period, so sort of that 20th of December all the way through to the 30th, we went from 44,000 down to 41,000, 40,500, 10% drop. I've given it a tick because it's up on the month, but really from a Santa rally point of view, Bitcoin didn't actually meet the criteria. And then if you have a look at last Christmas, why is there? Oh no, that's fine. Let's get rid of that. If you have a look at last Christmas, gave you my heart and all of that. Very good move up into the week that the Santa rally is supposed to take place. Started at 91,000 all the way up to 108. We were building off the momentum of the Trump election when meme coins were absolutely flying. But what do we see? We saw a huge correction in the week leading up to Christmas. And all of those gains, so that sort of $18,000, $19,000 gain that we saw in the first half of December, again, lost in a matter of days in the lead up to Christmas. So Bitcoin actually hasn't, the last 4 years, produced that good a Santa rally. And if we have a look, monthly returns, we can actually see the month of December has never really been a good month for Bitcoin. Even in bull years, it's never done well, except 2017 when the actual top happened in the month of December. Most of the other months since then, we've not really been able to sustain it. We had one standout month in 2020. And again, for those of you that are around, that's where we went from 20K to 40K in 6 weeks. It was an incredible move across November and December. But again, we're starting to see it stagnate. However, this year we have prayed for October and Moon November, or Moon Number, and neither of them came. Santa rallies don't normally happen for Bitcoin. So maybe we actually will get it. I mean, that is Hopium 101. But for me, I'm not necessarily holding out too much hope that it's going to be the Santa rally that drives us in that direction, I'm afraid. And then this was something that was sent to me. It was a tweet, and I've just redrawn it. So I was watching the, if you remember, this is my Wyckoff, which I did for Tau. But someone sent me one for Bitcoin. So this is a Wyckoff distribution schematic. So I don't want to necessarily go through it all again in a lot of detail because we're just going to waste 15 minutes. But effectively, we've had the accumulation phase. We have a markup, so a strong impulse move up, which is kind of what we had in May, going from that 74 low all the way up to, you know, a stage like 118,000. And then we have this sort of buying climax. We have sort of test areas. We have this upper thrust taking us to all-time highs, and then that main upper thrust at the 126. And actually, you know, I've got this down here. You can kind of see sort of how it looks. And there's a very similar pattern in terms of, you know, resistance lines, support lines, price coming down to it, sort of everything kind of tying in with a prelim supply to start off with. And it actually looks fairly good. Now, in terms of the phases, you know, phase A being that sort of markup phase, we've got a bit of a distribution sort of, so we're trying to challenge the all-time high, and then we've got this phase C where we actually do get the all-time high. Phase D, which is sort of like those failed rallies on low volume on the way down, and we're kind of moving into that, if this is right, that phase E. Now, phase E is not a good place to be because you think phase E is right, we're at the end with the accumulation. No, we're in the stage prior to a potential markdown phase, and I think that's the worry, isn't it? You know, when we talk about have we seen a distribution into a cycle top and we're coming back down. Now, we would, again, like to see, I don't know when my pen's gone, some sort of, you know, impulse move up and the support lines at 100K and everything else, and then that sort of melt down. But there's no guarantee that could happen. Also, I just wanted to clear up, this might just not be a Wyckoff pattern and we're just scratching. But, you know, it's there. It's kind of staring at us at the moment. I think it's hard to ignore where we currently find ourselves. And so again, we just remain cautious. That's the only thing we can do now. You know, we missed getting out the top, the current top. And so we just have to see where we find ourselves. And you've got to be willing to look at this now. We are so close to a level where you really need to make a decision. And that's why I try and hammer it home over the last couple of weeks. You've got to just make that sort of, right, okay, this is everything that we can see. And despite whatever, and you don't even have to listen to me, I'm just trying to give you a different viewpoint than perhaps you're told, to just make you sort of conscious of it. But if we start to see things actually playing out, you know, don't be that person that did buy some extra at 115,000 and you're now holding it at 50,000. You know, if you know you're going to be back in the game for the next 4 years anyway, just try and get in, learn from whatever that mistake was. And I've still got things to learn from myself, trust me. And then we build again. So yeah, so that's kind of that one there. And it kind of takes us to, you know, where do I think we are? I still kind of edge towards, I hope we're still on the left-hand side of this, but a lot of stuff for me is really pointing to where we're actually this side. You know, we have had that blow off top 4-year cycle, and whether you are a 4-year Bitcoin cycle, 4-year liquidity cycle, just from the traditional side of things, you're expecting one more kind of move up. You know, if you're judging weekly cycle lows and all of that kind of stuff, we're really running out of time for that to convince ourselves we've got another major move up, you know, rather than actually we've got a complacency rally from it. So I hate to say it, but, you know, this has to get more fixed on this side until we're proven wrong. And by God, would I love to be proven wrong. And I'd take all the shit you can give me if we are wrong, because, hey, I'll still be in a better position than where I find myself now. So when 20K, I tell you what, Mr. Tacos, it's good. 200K, sorry, I thought it was 20K. I'd be delighted if we did get to 20K. 200K, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, you know, you ask some people, and it's going to be Q2 of 2026. I just, for me, I'm sorry, I just don't quite see it yet. So that's where I find that. We're going to talk about Pippin later, because as you can see on the right hand side, this thing 30% today. So something's moving. Feeling a bit like how Zcash was not so long ago. Right, let's just get into some other stuff. We will find a little bit more optimism on the lower time frames in terms of sort of where Bitcoin is. I have just added the RSI onto this chart. It gets a little bit messy, I appreciate. So tune it out if you don't like seeing that. I'll try and minimize it a little bit so you get a little bit more of the chart. And then we can go where we are. So Bitcoin daily time frame, this is the range that we kind of find ourselves in, although actually we can kind of give it a bit of an angle to it. Now, some people may not like that because it may feel a bit more bear flaggish, but ultimately it's where we see it. And what are we seeing now that we've got some EMAs and stuff? So we had, I'm going to try and zoom in. We had it bottom down here, 84,500. We've had that strong move up. What's going to hit us in the face? It's going to be the 10 to 20 EMA. Now, we've hit it, but we've stuck around with the 10 EMA. And today's candle, I mean, it looks like a good low test, but yesterday could be argued as a good high test. I don't think it's really given us too much direction because we're moving sideways. So these aren't really helping us right now. But we haven't been at the 50 EMA for quite a while. 50 EMA would also tie in with the top of this range. And generally, when we get back down here, we actually work our way back up. And that's what I'm expecting to see. I understand I've drawn before that long-term resistance line down here. And I'm not saying we'll stay above this level for a long time. We may only just sort of moon up to it in a couple of days and back straight back down. But I am expecting a move up to that 93,000, 50 EMA kind of level, having a bit of a retest there. And then you know what I'm looking for, because it's absolutely everything we've talked about for the last 2 weeks, Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm looking for this to be some sort of W formation off the 800 EMA, resetting the RSI, which you now can't see because it's down here, but it was low. Look how low it was, and we're still sub 50. So there's plenty of room for us to run on the RSI. Now I can't shrink it. There we go. But I need us to get up to this 50 EMA, and then, yep, you owe it. I want us to break it with a vector candle. I'll take vector candles on the lower time frames, of course I will. I'll tell you what, we had a green vector candle on the daily. That would be great. Then we can start talking about whether or not this, which is what I hoped we were going to get to, what I thought we were going to get to a couple of weeks ago when we were back over here. And that was going to be our challenge to there. Then we're talking about that psychological 100K. We're talking about the 50 EMA on a weekly time frame. And you know the 200 EMA is going to be in the mix by the time we get there. So it's not that far away. I mean, let's not forget, we're only 10 days away from 2026 here. So that's the kind of upwards move that I am expecting, you know, and I appreciate I've been saying it for a while and we've had some failed attempts at getting there, but that's the move that I want. And that is, for me, to reiterate the point, that's going to be the absolute test of whether or not this was the all-time high, because I don't care if we get to 125,000 and reject. Well, maybe not that far, but we can't clear an all-time high at this next major impulse up. Come on, guys, we've got to say that we've had it. You know, we've got to give it that was just people exiting on the way up. We've got to try and give it some respect. So however far we actually manage to climb, the reality is if we see a big impulse move up and we don't make a new all-time high, I think we have to ask some serious questions as to how long it's going to be until we make that all-time high. And so I do expect a move up. I've been expecting a move up for 4 weeks. And it's on the merit of that move up, which will tie in with this complacency element here on what I do. And so, you know, we get to the 50 and we reject. I can take that one as we're still ranging. We get to the 200 and we reject. I'm going to have to start asking questions, just because 50 EMA, 100 psychological level. We get above that and we get into that noise. Remember, we talked for months about that 109,000 level. We get into there, clearing this vector, and we reject. You know, unless we hold that 50 EMA, and trust me, we'll talk about it then it's going to be a tough conversation to have. So I'm just poising myself for that position. That's where it is. I think I've been fairly consistent on that. We go down the 4-hour time frame. RSI is not really giving us too much, so we'll just move that down. And we kind of see, I mean, I don't know how many candles it is, but it goes all the way back to Thursday. That 50 EMA, we've just been lockstep with it. So much so, the 10, the 20, and the 50 all on top of each other. We have left a little vector above. I do believe, when we're in this range, we don't like to leave vectors, which is why I think we'll take that, and it's why I think we'll take that before we continue to either range or break through. The vectors have always guided us. I mean, go back. How many vectors do we see to the left of this range? 50? There's only 2 that haven't been taken yet. No, there's not. There's 3. There's a smidge of one down here. Sorry, I've just seen it. But still, that's not bad. So yeah, we need, similar thing. We need a vector through it. We do. We've had some weak attempts. We went through with an ordinary one, just an ordinary candle, red vector back through it, blue back through just to take out the red, and then we were kind of above it. We just didn't see that clear volume. We've had a red through it, and we're just trying to turn this around. But I want to see that red vector candle going through. So I think we just have to. I don't think the hour's going to tell us too much more. Again, below the 50 EMA, and that's how long we've been going sideways. The 1 hour and the 4 hour pretty much the same in terms of where the EMAs find themselves at the moment. It's obviously a bit more noise that we can deal with, and that 800 EMA up here take us back to that 91,000 level, but still a bit. I would expect still a bit more if we can get that high. Let's go on to bit tensor. I mean, it used to be everybody's favorite. I'm not sure how people feel about it at the moment. This one is down in the dumps. I mean, if you want to use the RSI as an indicator, we are due. It's some form of relief from this. We are down in the dumps. Daily time frame at the moment. Weekly's going to be looking pretty bad as well. Yeah, I mean, we've not been this low on the weekly since June, July 24, after we Binance to an all-time high. So, it feels like we really need a relief rally. I kind of got in yesterday, maybe a little bit higher than I wanted. It's $10 than it currently is at the moment. We'll take that one though, and expecting some sort of move at least up to these EMAs. But I was thinking both of those EMAs, blocking that vector. That's where I'd like to get it. And it is an if we get up to 300, then fantastic. But we just look, not what I hope to happen and where it is. This is just a hand-drawn. It looks kind of a straight line, but it was just a hand-drawn line. But we are actually, finding some support on that at the moment. But I just don't like, and this is what I said on Friday, that instead of finding some sort of bottom and making then at least the first attempt to break the trend with a higher low, we're still conforming to lower lows on the way back down. And even if we do manage to get through the 10, and even if we do manage to get through the 20, look at the noise at this 50 EMA level, 290 at the moment. Then we got the Gandalf line, which is the 800 EMA at 315. And then, I mean, we get back up to 330 and you're in at 220 and you haven't taken profit of some stage. I don't think you've really learned anything over the last 3 years. So much work to do. But the RSI is saying that we do need some form of relief. Even if it's just up to the 50 on the RSI, I'll give us something, but, can't guarantee where the price is going to go, but some buying kind of momentum. The selling has been atrocious. I'm not into the sort of the ecosystem and what's going on, behind the curtains. Maybe some of you will be able to sort of enlighten me on that one. I know we've had the halving. I don't know how subnets are particularly doing, but just from a technical viewpoint, it does feel like this has been far too sustained to the downside. But what worries me is it hasn't really been that many vectors. It's just been normal volume on the way back down. Let's get rid of some of those lines and then let's go on to the 4 hour. What are we in here? This is all the way back from April. Right, okay, so we're just eating into this vector. We did talk, and I talked about 214 being a good level to get back in. Of course, I waited $10 or whatever before I actually actioned it. But on the 4 hour time frame, 10 to 20 bullying us. Absolutely controlling it. Not seeing the 50 in a while. Again, if we can move up, I'd certainly be worried about the 50 from a close holding us back. We might wick through and take some of these vectors, and they're kind of tying in 237 with where we were on the 10 and the 20 EMA on the daily time frame. So maybe something there. On this one, what we can actually see is we did get into very oversold territories. Now price is still coming back down when the RSI is climbing. Is there some sort of bullish divergence there, kind of screaming maybe that we need some sort of relief pump or move on the cards. I think that is more than likely. I am solely in from a trade point of view. I'm not giving up, but I'm just trying to get some money from it. And speaking of getting some money from it, I don't know if Reese is on the call, but well done to you. Pippin is absolutely flying. But I just want to say one thing to Pippin, and that is F you. And I'll tell you why. Because yesterday I got in here at 3:35, I think it was. And I put a stop at 3:31. I thought it was below this here. So yeah, but no, it's about 3:31. Thought perfect. I had my take profit at 44, and I went out for some leaving drinks. Someone's moving to Dubai. I get stopped out, and then the market just magically reverses. It looks even worse on the hourly. So I get in about here, comes down, and then just flies up. It was just a terrible position for me to take, and I just came back and I was a bit depressed last night, so I didn't bother playing it again. But there's definitely something going on here, pushed by the cabal or whatever it is. But this thing is moving. It's up 30% today when everything else is down. And so I will be looking for a reset. I mean, from the RSI point of view, on the hourly time frame, far too overcooked. Wait for this one to come all the way back down. Even on the 4 hour, we're getting pretty high. Looking for this to try and reset some way before I try and find an entry. And I'm actually thinking about not just the perp trade here, but actually maybe some spot. Take some of that BitTensor money, put it in something that is actually moving. Now, it's risky, so I won't be doing a lot of it because the swings with your spot can be pretty brutal. It can be up 30% one day and down 20% the next day. So you time that day wrong, and that's going to be a very costly mistake. So I need to bear that in mind. And also, this thing is pretty overheated in terms of where it's going. But I know Reese has been trading this one well. So well done to you on it. But, this 4 hour time frame, this has actually, played in quite nicely in terms of down to this sort of 200 EMA. I wonder what it is on the daily. Let's have a look. So it was a 20 EMA. This is what I was working off. So I'll zoom in so you can see it. So yesterday, 20 EMA was at 31. I was like, I can see my mistake now. I should have given it a little bit of room, but I didn't think it would go all the way to 26. I ended up getting myself burnt, but it's done very well. However, we've been talking about bearish divergence. There's a hell of a one on here at the moment in terms of, so it's tough. It's going to be a risky one. I'd only do it if you can monitor it. And so maybe going in on Christmas Eve, Christmas Day and Boxing Day, when it's the land that time forgot, it's not the time to put a trade in there, particularly with leverage, because market makes will probably have a field day with that one. So yeah, just bear that one in mind. Ethereum, when it moves, bit like Bitcoin, really. We're still waiting for that move up. It's not done it. The 800 EMA, which we talked about on Friday, is just holding us, whereas Bitcoin has hit it and then bounced clear of it. We're just in and around that at the moment, but we haven't broke. It's the 50 EMA is not far away from us. It's only $200, but we haven't broken it in some time. And even if we haven't closed above it because the 200 EMA is there. So there's just work to do. It's definitely got some work to do, unfortunately. And whilst I could show you some other altcoins, let's just have a look. Total 2 we did have a look at, but daily time frame now with some EMAs. Okay, we can see it resting on the there on the 800 EMA, but again, a bit like BitTensor and unlike Bitcoin, we are forming lower lows on it. So this is still in a downtrend, and whilst it is ranging sideways, a lot of drawing on this, I appreciate it hasn't actually proven to us that we can make the move. And that's why we have seen Bitcoin dominance actually start to have a little bit of resurgence over the last week. Not a huge one, but a little bit there. Why don't you go all in on subnets? Yeah, do you know, from the little that I kind of glean from the subnet group, it feels like that is not just a full-time job. That's like a two-man job. You constantly, 129 different subnets. You've got to worry about what DSV wallets are doing and what rumor mills are doing and what the Feliz Navidad indeed, and what the I was going to say founder is saying. It's just not for me. It isn't. I've learned my lesson on those, so I'm quite happy. And good luck to every single one of them that makes it through it. You have earned it, and you will have the scars to prove it. In terms of sort of, I think Bijan posted this one. Others, get on the weekly. The sentiment for others, we've not been this low on the RSI since the bear market. There is just no sentiment right now. Now, what I would say, let me just clear this up. So sentiment might be low, ready for a bounce. Absolutely. Let's get rid of that. And we are down on, multi-year lows. Okay. So we may finally, remember, others is top, or crypto outside of the top 10. So maybe we've got some sort of move there. I've seen people say that actually what it is a head and shoulders, and we're just on the neckline. So of course we're gonna wait. We're gonna wait to see how that one plays out. But this one is very low on the RSI, so maybe that relief rally might bring something. Alts just haven't really done it this cycle, and we're going to talk about that next week with has Bitcoin failed. So we'll cover that. Dixie started to fall down, so that's good. But this 17-year trend line. That's what it's got to work towards. So 97.3 roughly. So we talked about the NAS and the S&P. We talked about gold. Some of these other ones, Coinbase. I mean, the crypto-related ones falling a bit, obviously. Still, MicroStrategy is close to a very difficult time. 157 at the moment. This is where we talk about can we start to realistically see 100. I don't think that's off the table. Whereas the likes of Nvidia, Palantir climbing, I have sold. So these are my stocks. Remember, pension, TauX. I sold. It's gone. I don't have it anymore. I'll take the hit. It's $2,000 I put in. I've got $1,000 left. It is what it is, but no, not for me. Tesla's doing well. QBTS is climbing up as well. So fine on some of those. For any of you that are interested in the old carry trade from what we talked about, so we've seen it moving up to pretty significant levels. That sort of 160, 158 level up here. Areas where we're starting to move back down. Really not calling a strong reaction unless we lose that 153, which we talked about last Tuesday and Friday. So that's something just to bear in mind. But just keep an eye on those, because if we are seeing an unwind, then that's going to move. And once you're not paying attention over the next week and a half or so, it could very well start to fall away, and then we'll have a look what's going on here. And I haven't verified this, but I saw someone talking on a video that Chairman Ueda is thinking about another 0.75 basis point. Not immediately, but over the period. So there we go, Reese, well done. So there's some fairly consistent fractals in the price action. They've been very helpful. Feel free to post some of those. I will happily take a look. Maybe I need some of your advice on a position to enter of about 2,400%. So 25x, something like that. So yeah, outstanding work there. Please tell me you put 100 grand into it. I mean, it'd be amazing if you did, but what the balls on you if you had done that first play. But yeah, a great move. And as I say, very reminiscent of Zcash on that move up. Just worried that I am potentially looking at it, right at this pinnacle. So that's something for me to just kind of temper. But it's hard not to. Maybe I just need to wait for the next one. But there's still money to be had. Absolutely still money to be had. And that's what crypto will always give you if you're willing to look for it. I think we'll knock that one on the head. It is Christmas. I hardly drank any of that beer. My floor is sticky and I'm getting bloody hot wearing this Christmas jumper. As I say, obviously, no call on Thursday. I will just be wishing everybody a very Merry Christmas on Thursday. I'm sure I'll post a message, and trust me, if the market shit the bed on Thursday for whatever reason, I will be in Discord tapping away something and hoping I'm not too drunk to actually, make a move from that one. But I can't believe I'm going to do a video on Friday. If I do a surprise one, I will let you know. I will be back on Tuesday because I don't have a life and I like doing those end of year summaries. And I think posing the question of whether or not Bitcoin has failed this year, I think is an interesting one. Bearing in mind, we are down on the year. So has it been a fail? But yeah, Enjoy. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Enjoy your Christmas, and I will speak to you all soon. Cheers now.